All right. So we got a good amount of people here. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? All right. Well, thanks for joining for our webinar today, Behind the Walls, How Spring Valley Construction is Using Open Space to Improve Efficiency and Reduce Costs. I'm Brandon. I am an account executive here at Open Space, and I will be your host today. Just want to quickly remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded and we're going to send it out next week. So don't feel like you need to take too many notes. Also, any questions that come up, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them as we're going along. We'll also have time at the end for a little Q&A. So we'll be monitoring that. Joining me today for our discussion, I have my counterpart, Enrique Amaya, who's our solutions engineer. I like to say he is our tech expert. And Trevor Baggett, who is the construction technology manager for Spring Valley Construction. Thanks for joining, guys. Beautiful. And I know probably most of you are familiar with OpenSpace, some of you might not be. So before we dive into the actual conversation with Trevor, I want to just quickly run through kind of what OpenSpace is, how it works, and then we will get into it with Trevor. Don't want to bore everyone with the PowerPoint, just a few slides, and we will start getting into the questions for Trevor here. So obviously, documenting your job site is not a new concept. Prior to using OpenSpace, a lot of our customers were taking photos with their phones or tablets, putting them in either a network of folders or a PM system. It works, it's easy, but usually what we find is the images are poorly organized, and that's if you even took the right image at all. We like to call it the data swamp. I'm sure many of you have taken a photo of a particular item 6 months, a year down the road, gone back to view that image, and what you're actually wishing you took the photo of was 5 feet over to the left or directly behind the person. Other options, you have the third party that can kind of come out and do it for you, but pretty infrequent and often don't capture the right stuff for you. And you can also self-perform with a tripod, but pretty time consuming to do that. That's where OpenSpace comes in. So OpenSpace, we pride ourselves on being extremely easy to use. We understand that if technology isn't easy, it's not going to get adopted and it's not going to scale across your company and project teams. How does it work? We integrate with off-the-shelf 360 cameras, goes right on top of the hard hat. We have a magnet with an adhesive. We also have a 3D printed mount that screws in the camera so you can walk around hands-free. We have an OpenSpace app that you can use on both iOS and Android devices. And all you're going to do is you have your plans already pre-uploaded on the app. You get out on site, you connect to the camera, you select your starting location on your sheet one time, tap go, and you're off to the races. Our system is taking a photo every half second for you, full 360. And once you are finished with your walk and you stop and you upload, that's where our AI, machine learning, SLAM technology, simultaneous location and mapping, is going to be overlaying all those images based on the walking path that you took. Everything's date, time, location stamped. And in about 15 to 30 minutes after you upload, everything will be done processing, and you're going to get what we like to say is a Google Street View for construction. So quick video of that process I just highlighted. So 360 camera right on top of the hard hat, OpenSpace app on your device, just select with your finger where you are one time, and then you're walking, just normal walking pace, don't have to look any certain direction. As long as you walk through an area, everything is going to be automatically captured for you. And this is where, OpenSpace, we're more than just a reality capture platform. We've become a pretty robust platform that has tools to assist the stakeholders at every stage of the project, from pre-con through construction, all the way to owner turnover and owner operations. And with that, I'd like to introduce Trevor Baggett again, and specifically our partnership with Spring Valley. We've been working with Spring Valley for the past 5 years. Trevor was the one that originally brought open space into Spring Valley. Um, Spring Valley, they have been building in North Texas for over 50 years. Diverse portfolio. They specialize in retail, multifamily, faith-based, higher education, and industrial projects. Trevor, thanks for being here again. You want to maybe jump in and just give a quick background on yourself and your role and how it's evolved at Spring Valley?
Yeah, happy to be here. I started back at Spring Valley last May. So I was here previously from 2018 to 2021. When I was here, I was an APM,
Hmm.
and we needed something to document our job sites, specifically our multifamily job sites.
Hmm.
So our search began, and we looked for, ended up finding open space.
And before you guys were using open space, what were kind of the challenges that you guys were facing? What made you want to start looking for a solution like open space?
Uh, Photos everywhere. There, we have a spot on our server where we just dumped our photos from our daily reports, and there is no organization. You couldn't go back and say, "Hey, on a specific day, where is this?" Uh, so finding open space and being able to, hey, we can go back and see specifically what's in this room
Hmm.
made a big impact for us.
Hmm. So is that time savings, that organization of all the images and just ensuring that everything's going to get captured and you're not relying on someone taking manual photos?
Correct. And being able to see what's behind the walls
Hmm.
when you go back later on a project.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a good segue. You guys originally started using OpenSpace specifically for multifamily projects, and and then we've evolved into an enterprise deal with you guys, and now we're on all of your projects. But specifically with starting on the multifamily, um, the biggest, I guess, challenge for you guys was being able to go back and see what was in the walls.
Yeah, we wanted to be able to go into a room and say we had a leak. We could demo just one portion, or in between two stud packs, which is 16 inches, instead
Mm-hmm.
of having to open up 4 foot of a wall. And that way the repair was less costly.
Hmm. Yeah, reducing rework, knowing exactly where things were. And so just being able to pull up open space, navigate to that exact location has saved you guys a lot of time and money.
Yes.
And so initially rolling it out on a project by project basis and then starting to use it on more projects, was that you guys were just starting to realize the benefits of open space for additional projects outside of multifamily? Were additional teams seeing open space and wanting to utilize it as well? Can you talk kind of more of like that implementation plan and rolling it out on a larger scale?
Yeah, so while I was gone, they ended up switching to an enterprise agreement.
Mhm.
I think one of the big values was just the job site documentation. I can go back to a project I did back in 2019 and go to the third floor maintenance closet and be able to see in there if I wanted to. It's
Mhm.
basically peace of mind knowing that we have that data forever.
Mhm. So you, like you just mentioned, you started as APM, you brought us on, you left, you came back. Has Now that you're in the role of construction technology manager, has your benefits of using open space evolved or changed now that you're in a different role?
Yeah, it's a little bit different now, only doing the construction tech side of things rather than running a project. I don't
Mhm.
get to walk out there with the hard hat and the camera on top of it as much as I used to, but being able to work with people like you and Enrique has it's enjoyable for me.
And and not being able to go out there and doing the capture yourself. Now, how are you ensuring that your team is capturing on a good cadence? What is your guys' usual cadence that you hope your teams will capture?
So on the multifamily side, we try and do a after framing starts. we'll do once a month walks and then at major milestones. So after MEP is installed, but before installation of drywall. That's the main key one is we want to be able to see what's behind the walls.
Got it. Got it. And then expanding that and so for other projects as well, I know you guys are using us on some remodels and other projects. Is it the similar cadence? Do you see some projects are utilizing it more or less?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same cadence about once a month, or if we're tying into an existing building, being able to walk that space
Mhm.
before and after the tie-in so you can verify everything is done correctly.
Yeah, getting those existing conditions for the remodels. Beautiful. Sweet. So I know you mentioned the example previously on going back and seeing what's in the walls for the multifamily. Do you have any other specific use cases that your guys' teams have been able to realize for these projects?
So I know some of the teams we've used it to be able to supplement an RFI in Procore, being
Mm,
able to take that image from the capture and populate it in the RFI, and that way the architect or engineer can see what the issue is rather than just having the information in words.
mhm. So has your guys' communication with other stakeholders in the job been able to improve through using open space?
Yeah, I think it makes us more collaborative, being able to like we can physically show them, hey, this is where we have this issue, or hey, we need clarification on this.
Mhm. Got it. And how are you making sure or who's overseeing, your project teams? Like, are you guys making sure that they are staying consistent with captures? Is it pretty built in so far where now you're almost hands off and everyone understands the benefits of utilizing it at the major milestones?
Yeah, all the project teams are very good about they take ownership of it and they'll go do it. They don't have to be asked to do it.
Mhm.
So it's
What do you think got them to that point? Was it realizing the cost savings after using it a few times? Was it difficult to get the teams to start capturing on the cadence that you guys were wanting?
I think initially it was the fact of, hey, I have to walk around with a camera on top of my head. So that kind of set some people aback from that, but once they got into it, it hasn't been an issue.
Got it. And then speaking of cameras, do you guys share cameras? Do you have everyone does it a little bit differently. Some people leave the cameras in the office, anyone can go and grab them, bring them out on site. Some have, each project team has their own camera. What's your guys' system for sharing the cameras?
So we have them in the office, and the APMs actually they check them out. We have a little whiteboard in our little APM bullpen area where you can say, hey, this person has this camera on this job, and
Hmm,
we just share those 4 cameras across all our jobs.
nice. Nice. Beautiful, and I'm sure that's helped improve, your efficiency and productivity, being able to get those captures on a consistent basis. And I know in your role as a construction technology manager, you're overseeing more than just open space. Can you talk about how open space has helped tie into other systems and help improve your workflow and productivity on site?
Yeah, so we use OpenSpace as an embedded app within Procore, so we're able to access it. Uh, Actually, most of our softwares we use, it's in an embedded app in Procore. So we have single sign-on to sign into OpenSpace. We use our Procore login, and it's it's been very much time savings. I can just go to Procore's website and click on OpenSpace from there on any job, and it'll take me right to it.
And how easy is that for you to set up?
It takes about 30 seconds to set up. You
Beautiful.
just got to have your project URL and what project you want to put it on in Procore.
Mhm. And before you guys were using the embedded app, are you seeing like a major difference between when you were just capturing and uploading to OpenSpace and still using Procore and versus now having it fully embedded within Procore?
I think the project teams get in there a little bit more, knowing that they can access it through Procore as well.
Yeah, it's just easier. Everyone, it's all single sign-on. They don't have to have two different logins. So yeah, more eyeballs on the project.
Yeah, while they're looking at an RFI, they can go click on apps, open space, and walk to that area so they can look at it themselves.
Hmm. Got it. Got it. And then any overlapping functionality between OpenSpace and other platforms? Now you touched on RFIs with Procore, but any other examples?
Yeah, I think the main one would be RFIs. It's similar to y'all's field notes, which tie into RFIs.
Yep.
Uh, that'd probably be the biggest overlap between the two.
Got it. And are you seeing the benefits of being able to kind of have the ability to still use field notes if you need to within open space and push those to any RFI observation punch item within Procore?
Yeah, I've used the field notes a couple times for that. Being able to have that URL, and while you're in Procore, you can click on it and it takes you right to it in open space.
Mhm. And then as far as um, sharing uh, with owners like owner turnover, project handoff, with the offline deliverable. Um, I know it's something that you're starting to build into all of your projects. You talk about just the value of having that all that data at the end of the project to hand over.
Yeah, so we're using the offline deliverables. I'm actually finishing up one right now for a project that completed last month. We put it on a flash drive or an external hard drive, and it gives the owners access. They can have all their open space data for however long they have a flash drive. They can go back in 10 years and look at it if they want.
Right. And yeah, and then this is just the Procore embedded integration. I know we just touched on the setup being extremely easy, but Enrique will jump in a few minutes and show exactly what that looks like, but and with some other additional features. But yeah, so it's just the 360 embedded open space capture underneath the Procore banner. So making everything streamlined and as easy as possible for the project teams to be able to view their data. And then Trevor, just one more question on my end before we pass it over to Enrique. If you were talking to another contractor about open space, which I know you have, what would you tell them?
You said it earlier in the webinar, and that's how I explain it. That's how I explained to open space my dad was. It's the Google Street View of my job site.
Everything's in there, everything's captured, full 360. Beautiful, awesome. Well, with
So
that, I am going to pass it over to Enrique. Enrique, again, is our solutions engineer, our tech expert. He's going to take over and run through a live demo. Again, if anyone has any questions for Trevor or any of us, feel free to put them in the chat. Enrique is gonna run through some of the platforms. So if any questions come up regarding the platform as well as he's going through it, we'll try to address them as they come in. Enrique.
Let's do it. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
yes.
Perfect. All right. So let's touch on a few points that were mentioned during this conversation. First and foremost, how OpenSpace works, what it does, and we'll go from there. I do want to address the elephant in the room. You guys are seeing the Procore banner at the very top. That's right. We're inside Procore right now. The cool thing about OpenSpace, as Brandon and Trevor mentioned, there's an embedded app for our platform. You can literally run all of OpenSpace, access every image, every feature, every single capture you've done within OpenSpace. It shows up within Procore without you having to jump between two separate platforms, right? So you'll have access to this embedded application directly from the Procore marketplace. Trevor mentioned it takes about 30 seconds to set it up. That's the only thing you have to do. Just get the URL out of your project from OpenSpace, put it in the settings of the app that you downloaded, and you're good to go. That's pretty much it. Now, you do have access to other features. Trevor did mention this as well. You do have a single sign-on, so your Procore login credentials actually work for OpenSpace as well, whether you're accessing the OpenSpace platform separately, you're accessing the mobile app from OpenSpace, or if you're accessing directly from within Procore, your Procore login credentials actually work to log into OpenSpace as well. And we'll talk about the integration with annotations such as RFIs, punch items, observations, things of that nature. So I'll walk you through that process as well. But I do want to kind of reiterate what Brandon was mentioning at the beginning, what OpenSpace is for and what it does. We'll start at the very, very beginning, which is what OpenSpace can do for our users. It's essentially a documentation platform using 360 cameras. It makes it incredibly easy for everybody to just document their job site this way. They hit the nail on the head with that description, the Google Street View of your job site. You essentially magnetically mount a 360 camera to the top of your hard hat. And using the OpenSpace app, you indicate the starting location of your capture. That's it. After that, you're off to the races. And as you start walking, you're capturing one 360 frame every half a second. That means that you're capturing everything around you, front, back, left, right, top, bottom. It's all being captured by the user without having to look in any specific direction. Every half a second, you get one of these images, and they're all time-stamped and location stamped to the floor plan, meaning you have access to every single one of these images. You can see all these little bubbles. They all represent individual images that were captured. And again, all time-stamped, all location stamped to the floor plan. I can navigate this in a different way. So for example, I can pan around here. You can see the cone of vision right there indicating what direction I'm looking at. I can click on the pad overlaid on top of the floor plan here, which lets me easily navigate the site. So I can click around, go to that location very easily. Or I can zoom out here and I can click anywhere on my floor plan and it'll take me to that location as well. So you can see it's very easy to navigate OpenSpace. The concept here is a non-intrusive approach to documentation. I think it was very interesting what Trevor and Brandon were saying a moment ago, which is Trevor has used some of the features you find in OpenSpace in a few occasions, not all of them, and that's why it's a non-intrusive approach. The concept of OpenSpace is to document your job site through and through. From that point on, you can choose the level at which you want to deploy OpenSpace on your project. If it makes sense to deploy every single feature, you can definitely do that. If it doesn't make sense to use every single feature, that will not affect the ability for you to deploy OpenSpace on that project and be able to benefit from the functionality that it offers right out of the gate. So it does give you that flexibility of how complex of a deployment you want to make it. It is also very, very simple to deploy. Again, Trevor's comment a moment ago of setting up an integration between two separate systems, both Procore and OpenSpace in just 30 seconds is pretty much what OpenSpace is about. It is easy to use. If you have the best system in the world and it's too complex to use, no one will use it, which defeats the purpose of actually deploying this new technology. So we focused on ease of use first. That's why we have a very high adoption rate. From that point on, we add a number of features on top of the ease of use approach that we have for OpenSpace. So that's why the adoption rate is so high. People just gravitate towards using something that's easy to adopt, easy to implement, and of course, easy to use. Now, when it comes to those annotations that Trevor was mentioning a moment ago, these are called field notes in OpenSpace. You have the ability to take field notes as you're walking about the site. You see something of interest and you can take a picture with your phone, your iPad, anything you have the OpenSpace app on, and OpenSpace will register where you took that picture automatically. It'll know what direction you were looking at. It'll know the location on the floor plan of that particular image. However, what happens when you didn't actually go to the site, which is what most users end up doing. Actually, Trevor is one of our users who does that. He no longer gets to go out to the site as much as he used to before, but because he now has access to the job site remotely, he can go in here and use any one of all the images that were captured to create that RFI, to create that punch item or that observation. So it's easy to do that. For example, in this case, there's a create field note option at the top center. I can take that, drop it anywhere on my screen, and you just saw that OpenSpace took that frame edge to edge of what we were looking at, I can mark up the image if I wanted to. So maybe if this column was something that I needed to annotate, I could just, draw an arrow there if I needed to. It's very easy to do that. I can add a description to this. So maybe, let's see, column 409, column 409 from this morning's owners meeting. There we go. So it's incredibly easy to just annotate any sort of finding here. We can set a status if we need to. All these options are completely customizable. We can assign it to people. We can add email alerts to any individuals or groups of people as well. So for example, if you wanted all the PMs to be notified of this note that we just created, and for them to be notified anytime something about this note changes, maybe they come in here and they go from priority 1 to priority 3 or 2, or maybe they just go in and label it as completed or maybe even verified. Every time something about this note changes, the group here will be notified as well. However, you do know very well who the assigned member of the team is in regards to this note. You can set due dates, you can set tags. It's a very simple approach to this process. And if Trevor, on the other hand, wanted to just take this image specifically for what they wanted in Procore, you can literally just hit share, export to Procore, and this image is now in the Procore pictures folder. The idea, again, is making sure that the image you need, you can easily find it, you can easily get to it, and it goes directly to the group that you need it to go to, right? You're not going through all these hoops to get the right set of eyes in front of this. You're literally just very easily sharing this image to the right group of people. Now, what happens when you create one of these notes here? You can see at the very top, we have a little Procore logo as well. We have an Autodesk Construction Cloud logo, which of course we integrate into that system as well, very much like we do with Procore. BIM 360, that's another Autodesk platform. We have Procore, we have PlanGrid, we have Revisto. So we have multiple platforms that we natively integrate with. But in this case, Procore is the one that was being used by Trevor and his team, right? So what we can do here is if we just click on the Procore logo after logging in with these credentials, we get this menu. We get the option of linking this to an existing RFI or a new RFI. Same with observations, same with punch items. So for example, if we wanted to link this to an existing RFI, we just click here. And you can see we can choose any of the available RFIs in Procore, in our Procore project. What's happening here is that this annotation that has a description, has a marked up image, it has a lot of information on here. OpenSpace will generate a report on this annotation. This is what's generated automatically every single time you create one of these field notes. You get this report that shows you the general location on the floor plan, the exact location, the orientation of that image, all the information that was added on there shows up here as well. You get a description. If you have a conversation going between your teammates, it's right here as well. Plus, you get a link so you can go back to OpenSpace and interact with the note. It'll actually take you to that very location. But again, if you just want to push it to Procore, so rather than you having to do the same work twice, you can do it just the one time in OpenSpace and have this annotation show up in both systems, meaning that if I just hit Procore again, link to new RFI, it shows me the necessary fields that I have to go through to create this annotation. I would have had to do this in Procore anyway, so I can do this now from within OpenSpace. I have the subject right there, RFI manager. It's already tapping into my Procore project information, so it's showing me all the available options from within my Procore project. You can see the description of the RFI, rather the question was added out of the description box we had there before. Plus we get two attachments, the PDF and the image, which are treated as two separate attachments. And the reason we do that is because the user will not only get the report, the one we saw a moment ago, but they also get the image as a separate attachment. So depending on your settings for RFIs or punch items or observations, the image attachment will also or can also go to your pictures folder, right? So that's why we treat it as two separate attachments, so that that setting is also respected as you're uploading images to OpenSpace. In fact, the whole concept of this is making sure that it's easy for you and that you don't have to do the same work twice, that it's not making it more complex for the user. That's part of the reason as to why our embedded app is only showing you images, and it's streaming the data into the embedded application. If it was uploading every single image directly to Procore, your Procore timeline would probably be destroyed by having thousands of image uploads on there every single time on every single project. Instead of actually doing that, you have the ability to choose exactly what image you want, which, to go back to Trevor's primary use cases of seeing what's behind the wall, you can click anywhere here. You can essentially do a split view, click on the calendar icon, and you can see you can start looking for captures in the same location. Once we find one of these, again, we can clearly see what's behind the wall. It's very easy to do this. So you won't have any problems with trying to determine, did I get that one picture that I needed? Did anybody ever walk through this area? You know exactly where people walk through, and you know what images you have at any point on the floor plan here. Before I continue, Brandon, Trevor, anything you'd like to add on the functionality that we just went over?
No, there was a question in the Q&A asking if you could show how to embed and integrate in the Procore. I'd pull up
Yeah.
the settings page.
Sure thing. Let me go to that same RFI that we had a moment ago. I think actually this one might already be embedded. There we go. So you can see this is now lit up because it's currently embedded to Procore. So if I click on this, it shows me that this was embedded to a test RFI, so we can view this in Procore. It's pulling it up now. And you can see it's showing me the information that we have. So this is just a test, of course. So the subject, the question, the link to the actual item in OpenSpace shows up here as well. Plus you get the annotation, or rather the attachments. So we have the PDF. I was 2 images on that annotation, so that's why we have the 2 on here. And all the information that you added or didn't add, of course, shows up here as well. So remember, you have the ability to go through this. So for example, if I unlink this, and then, so you can see it again, if I want to do a new RFI, remember, you get all these fields, the same fields that you're used to in Procore. They show up here as well because you're creating the item in Procore. So if we go here, whether or not you add them will dictate whether or not that information shows up here as well. So it's pretty much the exact same you're used to, except that it will include the attachments, the link to OpenSpace, and the ability to navigate to that location automatically. Great question. All righty. One last thing I wanted to show you real quick before we hop off, because again, we do have a number of really cool tools within OpenSpace. For example, the ability to create folders or groups other than yourself. So for example, if you're ever working with a third party, you have the ability of to create folders specifically for them. So you have maybe an owner's folder, the sign folder, weekly job site report folder. That means that you, as the owner of the data, can actually choose what you're sharing with third parties, rather than giving them access to every single capture, which we have a ton of them here. If we go to the capture section, we currently have 128 captures. All of them have hundreds, if not thousands of images, depending on how big the walk was. And again, when you invite someone into your project, you're actually giving them that level of access to this data. You can choose what type of permission they have. Are they a viewer? Are they an editor? Are they an administrator? But yet you're still inviting them into your project. However, what you can do is, if you're working with a third party, create a folder, and here you can choose out of all these captures which ones they'll have access to. I can go to the capture section right here, and I can copy any one of these to that shared folder. In fact, I can do that on a per image basis as well. So rather than me adding a full-on capture with maybe this one, which is about 750 images, rather than me sharing this capture with someone, I can choose maybe 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 images, however many images I want, by clicking share, then copying this location to the folder itself, which again gives you that flexibility of choosing exactly what a third party has access to and what they can view out of your project. We all know that an image out of context can maybe raise more questions, so that the ability to curate what you're sharing with any third party is a key element of our platform, making sure that you have full ownership, but of course, full access to how to share the data, and of course, that flexibility of what you're sharing with any third party. That folder itself can also be public or private. If it's public, people can just click on the link. They can see the contents of the folder. The link will never expire either, so you can keep adding contents to that folder, and they'll be able to see the new updates that you're adding to it. If you decide to make the folder private, you're essentially requiring them to log in before they can see the contents. Again, you have that flexibility of choosing how you're sharing this data as well. Question popped up, I think.
They are asking about sharing specific field notes.
Oh, great question. Yes, you can do that as well. In fact, OpenSpace, as you saw a moment ago, you can choose what field note you want to download as a PDF report. Anytime you get one of these notes, click here, top right corner, you can choose to download any one of them. It'll produce a report like the one we saw a moment ago, where it shows you all this information. However, OpenSpace gives you this really cool functionality where if you go to the left side, we have a field notes manager. This manager is great because it has a lot of filters of what you want to highlight here. So for example, I can filter for items that are essentially assigned to myself. Tags, you can tag it with anything that you want. You can actually customize that list as well. By status options, due dates, who this is assigned to. You can even customize this and filter by zones. The zones are great because it allows you to highlight an area on your floor plan. You give it a name, and now that's the zone that you're filtering by. So I can essentially create a report that shows me all the field notes, let's say all the plumbing field notes from 2 weeks ago on the second floor on the western side of the structure, specifically on room 105, right? So I can essentially have that level of customization, and OpenSpace will produce one page like this one for every note that it finds, and it'll create a summary at the very top, letting me know how many it found, how many were open, how many were closed, where they're located, all of that. So it gives you a summary page before you even start going through individual pages for each of the items that it found. So it's a great way of sharing specifically the field notes that you need and producing a report based on that. If you just want to, hand pick all the notes, you have that option as well. I can literally select the ones that I want. I do have the ability of setting filters, of course, and automating this process. But if you want to do it hand by hand, you can actually do that yourself, select the ones you want, and export them as a report as well. So it's a very simple process, and it allows you to choose what field notes you want to share and how you want to do it. Great question. Now, to go back to our capture here, I think we had one last thing I wanted to show you real quick. And remember, OpenSpace does give you the ability to bring in 3D models for your projects if you're working with that. So if you're using BIM on your projects, you can literally drag and drop your model into OpenSpace. It is that simple, no additional steps to that process, and you'll have the ability to navigate both your model and your 360 capture simultaneously. I can click around, and you've probably experienced this yourself if you're using BIM on your project. You can see I'm using just the mouse wheel a little bit. I scrolled out, and now I'm floating out in space. It makes it hard to navigate. You're just kind of using the controls for the model viewer. But on the left side here, we have first this little lock icon in the center. If I just click on it again, it'll snap right back to the correct location. You can't really break this alignment anyway. And so you're also using the controls on the left side, which are pretty much like the ones you're accustomed to if you ever used something like Google Street View. So again, you're dragging the image, you see the walk path, you can click anywhere on the walk path, and it'll take you to that location. So it's a lot easier to navigate. Your users that might not be using BIM right now will definitely benefit from using something like this, because now they have the ability of using the model next to their capture. So if they want to do just some basic QA/QC, feasibility studies, things of that nature, determine if what's actually on site matches the design intent, you can perform this sort of analysis, the side-by-side comparison. There are additional VDC-focused features in OpenSpace as well that allow you to do more things beyond just this. For example, if I wanted to go beyond what OpenSpace can do on the capture offering, which is our basic offering for OpenSpace. We do have those additional features. For example, I can highlight an element out of my model. I can overlay that on top of my image. You can see that I can now mark that element if I wanted to, and have OpenSpace show me a picture of both items automatically. I can continue to pan around here. I can clear this. I can calibrate it. There's a lot of really cool things that I can do. In fact, if I let's say this column right here is obstructing my view somehow, and let's say I'm going to hide this segment of the column. I'm going to do this as well. Maybe the duct right here. All of these elements are kind of obstructing my view from where I am, and I want to hide them. So now that they're gone, and I can see past this element, I can also save this as a view. If I do this, that means that users, when I share my view of the model, they're seeing what I left behind for them, not the full-on model with every layer enabled, because that's not what I shared with them. Again, I can just click view, give it a name, maybe let's call it model, node duct, or column. There we go. And so when I send you a link, that you're seeing what I left behind for you, rather than the full version of the model and me having to expect for you to go in there and edit those layers of the model. Again, there's a lot of really cool tools in OpenSpace to ensure that the right person sees exactly what you need them to see, and just kind of simplifying the overall process of sharing information across teams. Yeah, a lot of really cool tools in OpenSpace, a lot of really cool things you can do. But overall, remember, ease of use, easy adoption, easy integration, and of course, the most important thing is easy to share. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, please do not hesitate to let us know. Brandon and Trevor are here to answer any of them, and we can also follow up after the fact.
Yeah, Enrique, looks like we have a few questions in the chat. One question: can you drag Revit models that are cloud-based without creating local files that can be outdated?
Great question. So what you're doing in OpenSpace is it's a drag and drop process as well. So if you have a Revit file, it's not essentially a cloud-based or in OpenSpace, right? You do have a cloud integration into ACC directly from OpenSpace. That means that in fact, let me show you that real quick. If I go to my project settings, go to BIM here, and if this is linked to ACC, I have the ability to replace it or update it directly from ACC. In this case, this is not linked to ACC. This project is linked to Procore, of course. But again, if I link this to ACC, that would be a cloud-based model, but it technically just dragged the model into OpenSpace for the alignment. Once that was done, if you needed the new iteration of that model to show up in OpenSpace, the only thing you do is, rather than hit replace, you just hit update. There's going to be an update option. You click on that, and it'll pull up the latest version of the model. So that's what you'll see in OpenSpace. But every time that you want to make sure that you're doing that, the only thing you have to do is you go in here, you hit update, and you'll always be working with the most up-to-date version of the model, essentially. Great question.
Another question for you. Do you have to individually hide things like columns, or can you hide an entire layer?
Oh, great question. You can actually hide an entire layer. I was highlighting specific elements, but what I can do as well is I can click on that, and I can pull it up on the model browser as well. And as you can see, it took me to that particular element, but I can keep scrolling up on the model browser, and I can choose the whole layer as well. So not just the one pipe, but you can see every element that was part of that layer was removed as well. This is the Forge Viewer from Autodesk, so it has all that functionality you would expect out of the Forge Viewer available here as well.
Beautiful. Great questions. One more. This is going back to Procore. Is there a way to sync drawings in OpenSpace with latest drawing markups done in Procore, such as any RFIs that are linked to the drawings in Procore?
Great question. So what you can do in OpenSpace is, once you're putting drawings in OpenSpace for capturing purposes, actually you can pull your sheets directly from Procore. Back at the settings menu, I can go to sheets right here, and I can import all of my drawings directly from Procore. But this is done on a per drawing basis first and foremost. You can actually just click that. It'll pull up the drawings from your project. And then you can choose which ones you want to load over to OpenSpace. But again, this is just for capture purposes. If you're trying to use the latest markups or anything like that, that would be a different process, and that's not something that we're doing just yet. The other way around, though, it is working. But I do want to mention that we are currently working and taking feedback on a two-way sync with Procore. So if you have any specific requirements that you'd like to maybe discuss with your rep, please let us know. We can have a conversation. And remember, all your feedback with OpenSpace goes directly to the product team. Literally, every feedback that you can provide, any piece of feedback you can provide, will go directly to our product team. And that shapes what you're looking at right now. 100% of what you're seeing comes from user feedback. So if you have anything you'd like to see in our platform, please let us know. Thank you.
And then looks like we got one more that just came in. So using a field note from OpenSpace to create a punch item has less filters / options than when you do that for creating a Procore observation from the OpenSpace field note. Can the same options and filters eventually be added for the punch item tool in OpenSpace?
Great question. Yes, going back to my previous answer, it's technically doable, right? Like the way we did it was to make it so that people that were using OpenSpace for the first time was a lot simpler for them to adopt this new process or this new technology. But again, if we're ever missing anything on the OpenSpace side, we definitely want to hear your feedback on that. That's actually the first time I've heard someone specifically request that. But again, I'm actually getting the notes from this session at the end. All of that's going directly to our product team. And since we are working on improving this integration between OpenSpace and Procore and the other systems as well, not just Procore, but we are working on improving this integration. I can definitely say that the Procore team and the SDK and APIs they provide for working with their system, they're easy to work with. So we'll definitely take that into account as well. I'm sure we'll have more information to offer in the near future. But thank you for that feedback.
All right. If there's any other questions that anyone has for myself, Enrique, or Trevor, feel free to throw those in the chat before we jump off here. But just to wrap up, everyone, thank you for taking the time. Hope that was valuable. Trevor, really appreciate you jumping on and sharing your experiences using OpenSpace. And again, we really appreciate the partnership with you in Spring Valley.
Happy to be here.
All right. Looks like we had one question just come in. Someone raised their hand. Let's see. I don't see a question. Oh, Sam wants, let me see. I'll allow Sam to talk. Here we go. All right, Sam, go ahead. Nope. Okay. All right. Well, this is going to be, the recording is going to be sent out. If anyone has any additional questions, you guys can send them to info@openspace.ai. If you want to jump on a demo with an OpenSpace rep, you can also do that through the openspace.ai website and submit a request, and someone from our team will reach out and be able to chat more with you. All right, everyone, thanks again, and have a good rest of the day.